episode 3 of the Business of Enterprise IT podcast. I'm Josh Davis, Marketing Director, and with me is Scott Davis, Vice President of InfoSystems. And Scott, today we're going to wrap up our discussion about the InfoSystems Production-ready Cloud. And I think it's been a really kind of an interesting progression that we've taken, kind of talking about various cloud and data center concepts, and talking about what and why we've decided to do this and bring this solution to the market. But the one piece that I think is still out there that is really important to cover is sort of InfoSystems and our service behind the cloud offering. Because when you think of large cloud providers, you're essentially purchasing a product or service, but there's a line of delineation, and you really have to get to the point of being able to use their service. And I think there's a major differentiator there between what we're doing, and that's that we have a team of IT professionals, consultants, architects, support staff, who can be a part of that entire transition,
right,
from evaluating to planning to implementation, and so it's more of an end-to-end partnership. So I think it's sort of, that's a really important piece of this that we can kind of frame our conversation around today. So before we launch into that, I wanted to bring up, because I think this is a really exciting offering, piece of technology, whatever you want to call it, that we're bringing to the marketplace in Chattanooga, where our headquarters is. And Chattanooga is sort of becoming known now as this little micro technology hub. You have EPB, who came out with gigabit internet and was the first in the United States to offer that publicly to everyone within their service footprint. And beyond that, things started happening where they're having competitions to invent new applications and make use of gigabit internet speed. And so all of this stuff has kind of been happening over the last, I don't even know how, has it been 7 or 8 years now maybe that EPB has had that, to the point where now Chattanooga is getting national recognition and international recognition as sort of a tech leader. So my question for you is, do you think what we're building, what InfoSystems is building, fits into that narrative of Chattanooga having some really cool things happening in technology and IT?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it absolutely does. It provides lots of benefits. I mean, obviously, affordable bandwidth, when you start talking about hosting of any ilk, is important, because at the end of the day, you have to pay for a connection between your facility and the hosting facility, whether that be one of the hyperscalers or us. And the ability for InfoSystems to leverage the investments that the city of Chattanooga made and EPB has made over the last 7 years to provide some of the most affordable bandwidth in the country is a key enabler, and I think is one of the things that's going to help us to offer a really cost effective solution to our clients. And I think, as you mentioned, we've sponsored some things in the past where we've had different teams try to come up with different applications and with school kids and college age kids, and it's really exciting to see the buzz that's developed over the past 6 or 7 years in Chattanooga, and we've been certainly a part of that from time to time, and helping encourage young people to explore technology and get excited about what's happening. And just the market itself, I mean, anywhere you go, I mean, who doesn't have a smartphone anymore?
Right.
And who doesn't order off Amazon anymore? I mean, our lives have dramatically changed over the last 10 years. And so, Chattanooga, I think, as a city, and EPB and the foresight that they have to make those investments, I think really put this geography ahead of the curve, I would say, against some other cities, and I think gives us a unique benefit to what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. So jumping back into what we'll be talking about for the rest of today's episode, and sort of the IT partnership behind a cloud solution. Working with a hyperscale cloud provider is a totally different concept than the way we approach business. And I was almost thinking, like, when you look at the public cloud offerings, it's almost like a DIY approach to IT. They're just providing you the tools as a service for you to do other things on your own, instead of having someone who can do it for you. So when you break it down into the different areas, like powering applications, data storage, and all of those things, what's different between having that DIY mentality versus sort of a consultative partnership?
Well, it's dramatically different. And, again, from a business perspective, I mean, many businesses that we've worked with that have already, moved their applications, their workloads into our environment, we have worked hand in hand with to go out in the beginning and really just assess where they are today, right? Come in, look at their technology, understand the level that it's at, understand is it suited to be moved into a hosted environment? Or there's simple things like there's a lot of companies out today still running on Windows 2003 server, and I mean that's a very old operating system. Not to get too technical, but that's not supported anymore. Yeah. And I can't even go to Microsoft and purchase a license to provide it to you.
Right.
I mean, it would not be supported. It would be in violation of my licensing agreement. So, we go out and look for those types of things to make sure that if there's anything that needs to be addressed or needs to be upgraded before you move to a managed service or to a cloud provider, that those things are identified and the cost is identified and the time and effort is laid out so that the business owner can make again, I always like to say, a head up, eyes open decision. Yes, I'd like to move into some sort of managed service, but I'm going to have to make an investment to upgrade some areas of my technology to be able to do that, right? And that's something that, the hyperscalers, if you're going to get any help at all, it's certainly not going to be the personal on-site type of assistance. So, we offer a service here, and I know some other podcasts have been done with Aaron Swan, who's one of our virtual CIOs. I mean, we can start at that level if the business leader needs to, where if you don't have a CIO, because it's just not something that makes sense for you to have an in-house CIO, we can send Aaron out, and Aaron can sit down and have a dialogue with the business owner and understand, what are their current business priorities, what's the roadmap look like over the next 12, 24, 36 months, and then help bring in some technologists to assess where they are, and then look at what he's gained in insight from the business owner and really do a comparison. Is there a gap between what you think you're going to need or what you need today and what you're going to need in the next 12, 24 months, and what you have today is going to be able to deliver? Yeah. And so we do that gap assessment, then we do that technology assessment to see are there some things that are running in your environment that are so old that they need to be upgraded, and there needs to be a mitigation plan built and put in place and executed before you're even really ready to move to the cloud. And the other thing that I think most business owners aren't aware of, if you're running on some of that older software and you have some older equipment and it hasn't been patched, it hasn't been maintained properly, I mean, that's a security nightmare. Yeah. I mean, they haven't released security patches for those old out-of-date operating systems for years. So that's low-hanging fruit for the hacker, right? Because they already know where the back door is at, and they're not being fixed anymore because it's an out-of-support product.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot there, and what we can do is come out and help the business leader, assess where they are, identify a list of priorities, and assign some budget and planning costs to those types of things so that they understand, this is what I need to do, this is the order I should do it in, and this is how much it's going to cost. And frankly, all that should happen whether you're going to move to the cloud or not.
Right. Yeah.
Because that's just good technology practice.
Yeah.
You need to patch, you need to keep things updated just because of the security risks that we're all facing today.
Yeah.
Plus, if something happens, it's out of support. Who are your people going to call to get support on it because it's no longer supported? So there's just all kinds of reasons that's a win-win for the business leader.
Public cloud. What you said, made me think of this. Is public cloud offerings are usually very effectively used as development and test environments, and so you're building something new in that native environment, not necessarily migrating from one to another. So I mean, you're really when you're talking about production workloads and all this existing technology and applications that have been in place for who knows how many years, and moving that to a completely different. You've just introduced so many different variables into the equation. It's just a way different than that development mindset of I'm going to go here and build something. So another question I had about this is, let's say a company was going to move production workloads from an existing environment to a cloud environment. What type of resources would they need internally to make that happen? What type of people and positions and roles? And I want what I'm relating that to is the personnel that we usually have on that type of project for one of our customers. So maybe you could compare, who would they need internally to pull that type of move off, and who are the people that we have on that type of project?
Well, some of what we just discussed, I think, highlights some of that. You really need someone at that strategic level, right, to understand, the as-is business environment and what the business roadmap looks like over the next, 2 to 3 years. So you need to have that piece of it. You really need to have a project governance, project management aspect to that, right? I mean, This is a project, right? You're moving something that's really important to you from on-prem to off-prem. So you really need to run that as a project, and it needs to have governance around it. You need to have plans and timelines, and dependencies need to be established. So you need to have a project management aspect to that. And then when you get over into the technology area, there are a lot of different disciplines within that area that need to be addressed. Obviously, network. You need to have a networking consultant because, again, you're going to be moving something that's very important to you off to another place, and the only way to get there is via the network. So you want to make sure that you have a thorough view of what the network capabilities are today in your environment and what they're going to need to be when you move this workload off-site. Then you need to have someone who understands server and server virtualization because that's the compute piece. Then you have your data storage, so you need to have someone that has, storage area network knowledge and virtualization so that you can, move workloads around, move data around and be able to access it and have resiliency there. You need to have a backup and recovery expert because you're even just because it's going in the cloud, a lot of clients I talk to go, well, I'm putting my stuff in the cloud, so I don't need to back it up. Well, that's not true. It absolutely has to be backed up. In fact, if you're moving into the cloud, you probably want to back it up even more. Because you're sending it off somewhere where you don't even know where it is. By the way, at least with us, I can take you to the building where it is so you can go get it back if you want it.
Right.
But if it goes up into the ether, you're done. You better be backing it up, right? So you have to have a backup and recovery skill that's in there. And you also have to look at how your end users are going to access your applications once they're moved. I mean, we've had clients come to us and, they go to put their applications up in the cloud, and in the past they've maybe not followed some best practices, and they've got some hard-coded addresses in their applications, and they can't move them, right? Because they don't use the proper DNS technology to be able to route things around through the internet. So there's just a lot of things that you need to address when you're moving your workload and going through this type of a project. And if you're going to a hyperscaler, most of that is going to fall on you.
Yeah.
Now you can come and hire a firm like us to come and help you do that, and we've helped people do that in the past.
Right. Yeah.
But one way or the other, those things are going to have to be looked at. They're going to have to be, assessed. You're going to have to look at what you do, a gap analysis between what the cloud will support and what you're running. There's going to have to be a remediation plan built. It's going to have to be executed, and then you're going to have to move. Okay. But after you get there, you still got to do that because you can't stop. Mm-hmm. Because all the manufacturers, Microsoft, Red Hat, VMware, SAP, Oracle, it doesn't matter. They're all releasing new versions of their applications and their databases all the time. Yeah. And those things are going to continually have to be monitored, and things go into life. You got to make sure that you're moving up to at least a recently supported level so that you don't get yourself back in the situation where you might be in today, which is you have a lot of unsupported environments that you're running your business on.
And I guess, maybe it's likely for an major enterprise company to have those types of resources on staff ready to go, but that's obviously not the case at mid-sized companies.
No.
So, I mean, I'm curious sometimes about the companies that are making use of the public cloud and what their current situation might be. How did they get there, and what does it look like? Are they in a really good place? What for someone who has already started making use of cloud offerings, what advantage might they have of having someone come in to evaluate how everything is set up?
Well, I think again, just that knowledge of the space, right, and of the market and what's out there, and looking at how things are built. We call it the as-built, right? How is it put together today? A lot of people think, again, we've mentioned it already, I'm putting it in the cloud so I don't have to back it up. Mm-hmm. That's not true. You absolutely need to back it up. Or I'm putting it in the cloud, I don't need to worry about security. That's not true. Just because you put it in the cloud provider is not providing security services, at least not in their base offerings. Yeah. So, there's a lot of I think, misnomers and a misunderstanding about, all I got to do is put it up in one of the hyperscalers and all of my problems go away, and all of the risk that I face today are no longer there. That's just simply not true. And the other thing that I think that is often not thought of when people start moving things into that hyperscale environment is, what is my exit strategy? As a business leader here at InfoSystems, I make all kinds of decisions that impact this company and the families that I feel like I'm personally responsible for, that are our associates. And I rarely make a decision without considering my exit strategy, or what's my remediation plan. Yeah. If this doesn't go the way that I think it's going to go, how do I not burn a bridge so I can go back? Those types of dialogues. And I think a lot of times, because business leaders are simply told by their IT staff that it's okay just to put it up in the cloud and all of this is going to go away, because they don't necessarily understand it themselves, that the business leader just goes on that advice and they go ahead and do it. And then, I've had many conversations with clients that we serve where it doesn't necessarily go as well as they had hoped. So, I think it's just something, again, that you have to look at, you have to explore, you have to understand what your options are, you have to understand how they're different. Mm-hmm. We're not trying to be a hyperscaler.
Right.
Obviously we don't have the resources to go into that market, but that's okay. We don't want to be. That's
Yeah.
their market. I don't want to go after their market. I want to create my own market, which is production-ready cloud in our geography.
Yep. So maybe really quickly we could talk about timelines, because I thought that might be an important factor. What would be kind of a common timeline that a business leader could expect for, sort of that assessment layer to happen, and then kind of planning and executing a cloud migration?
It depends on the size of the environment, right? It depends on how big the company is, how many virtual machines or how many physical machines we're talking about, how many applications are running. It also depends greatly upon how backdated are they, okay? If everything they have has to be updated, well, that's going to take some time, right? It's not something you just snap your fingers, because there's interdependencies between the different applications, and a lot of times you can't upgrade this one without upgrading these three over here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it can become fairly involved. But assuming that, everything is reasonably up to date, and it's just a lower, medium size or a larger, small business, I think if I'm a business leader, I want to start this conversation a minimum of 90 to 120 days out from when I'm going to have to make a decision to do an internal refresh, to buy new servers, to buy new equipment. I want to give myself 3 to 4 months. 4 months would be better.
Yeah.
6 would be great, right? Because we're not in a hurry here. Our business is not, hey, we're going to come out and expect you to buy something that we're going to, you're going to pay us for tomorrow. That's not the business we're in. We're in the relationship business, and we're happy to come out and just talk to you about, hey, this is going to be going into life in 6 months or even a year. A lot of times I'll go talk to customers where they're a year away from having to make a significant technology investment to do a refresh. And we sit down and start talking about options. And the more time that we have, frankly, the better off we are, because that way we can help them start making some decisions that steer them in the right direction or get them on the right track, so that when they are ready to go to the cloud or stay on-prem, whichever direction they tend to go, or they decide to go, that they're in the best position possible.
Yep.
But I'm going to say probably a minimum of 3 months from initial conversation to where your workload's running in the cloud. Now, could we move something up in a couple of weeks? Sure, we have the capacity there. I mean, if we were just moving a couple of simple machines, that could be done, and that's not the constraint. The constraint is understanding all the things we've been talking about.
Right. Yeah.
Right. That's the constraint. Right. So the technology is easy. As far as providing the capacity and getting their environment into our environment and turning it on. That doesn't take that long. It's everything around it that really needs to be thought through and managed.
Yep. As we have talked through the material of these 3 episodes, talking around our production-ready cloud, I had this sort of, I guess what you would say, a soapbox moment or whatever, where, I started thinking about the end result. You like to say outcomes of that managed migration to the cloud. And one of the things I kept coming back to was, that SLA that we're going to provide 99.99, 49s. And I kept comparing it to, and it's funny that you mentioned this in one of the episodes, of if you're managing your own IT internally, there is no SLA. You can't insure or guarantee yourself. I mean, they're obviously going to give their best effort, but we're providing a level of guarantee. And then I started thinking about, essentially with a public cloud, you're really just thinking about an extension of all of the same factors that you deal with your on-site IT. So over time, all of the people that are involved, all the environmental factors, the hardware, software, the changes, the decisions, all of that's really just extended into a different place, because you're still internally in control of that and driving the decisions and handling the maintenance. So, it's unlikely that a company would go to the public cloud and manage that environment in a different way than what they would manage if they had it on site.
Right.
They're going to handle it the same way. And so that's really when the value of what we're doing kind of hit me. And, I think what we're essentially doing is enabling customers to leapfrog past all of those decisions and all of the, incremental updates and maintenance and all of that stuff, and be able to move right into that guaranteed environment, the outcome that you talk about. And to me, the value of that is tremendous. So, do you have any thoughts about that you maybe could leave us with today?
Well, the IT industry for years has kind of baffled me a bit, right? Because if you look at just about any other industry, right, you don't act as your own physician, right? At least very few people do, right?
Right.
I go to a doctor once a year and I get a physical. If I need, if I need eye surgery, I go to an eye surgeon, right? Not that long ago, I had to replace the heating and air conditioning systems in my home because we've lived there 14 years and they were just worn out, right? Guess what? I didn't do that myself, okay? Now, I'm a pretty technical guy. I carried a tool bag for 16 years and I've worked on all kinds of equipment. And I worked on aircraft in the Navy and I was an electronics technician. Could I set it in place and hook it up and make it run? Probably, but would I do it right? Probably not, because that's not what I do. But it's interesting that over the years, people have got into this mindset where they want to do their own IT internally. And I understand why they do that, but it's been kind of a pendulum, because in the old days, like when IBM first came out with the System 36 and the AS400s, you would get a software provider that would take that specific platform and they would wrap their software around it and they would sell it to a company, and it was a turnkey thing. They would come in, they would set it up, it would run. In fact, we were talking about that earlier. There's thousands of those things. The evolution of those things are still out there running today, and we have an offering for those as well. But then it kind of evolved into this. Well, everybody started, with the evolution of the personal computer, and then that grew into the Intel server, and those were fairly low-cost devices relative to the old, mid-range and mainframe compute that all the major manufacturers used to sell. So people started doing it themselves, and I understand that, and that's okay because it can be viewed as a cost saver. But what happens is you end up with a couple of people on your staff generally, and they are not specialists. They're generalists. They know a little bit, in most cases, about a lot of different areas of technology. But they know no more about that than I would know about installing my own HVAC system. I mean, I know where the components go. I know how to get power to them, and I could cable them up so the thermostat would turn it on, but that doesn't mean that I'm an expert. Okay? So I think that's the difference we're providing, and I think that's where the market is starting to go. People are realizing that, hey, this roll your own IT is getting a little long in the tooth. It's getting a little tiring, and I'm tired of my phone ringing. I'm tired of having to make unplanned investments because, something happened, and my team came to me and said, we weren't expecting this, but here's something that went wrong and we need you to spend X, Y, Z. The other thing that I think we're going to offer is that it's going to be, it's not going to be a big bang investment every 3 or 4 years, right? So you're going to have to stroke a big check, right? We're the ones that are buying the infrastructure. We're the ones that are building the capability. So we're stroking the big check, and then we're going to sell it to you over time, right? So you've got something that's easy to budget against because you know what it is. We can tell you in the beginning if you have to buy more of it, how much you're going to pay for it. We can give you that pricing up front. So you can look, and we can help you look at your growth pattern over the last couple of years. So we can tell you, well, here's where you are today. Here's where you should expect to be in 12 months, 24 months, 36 months. Or maybe, hey, you're going to be flat based on what we're seeing. So again, that helps the business leader to have a much easier task of being able to manage cash flow, IT expenditure, and again, like you alluded to, if you use the same approach to implementing the cloud that you use to implementing your on-premise environment, you're most likely going to get similar results.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Well, I think we had a pretty good conversation there. I'm glad we got to spend this time talking about the cloud that InfoSystems is going to be offering, and I'm sure there will be more information that we talk about. It's something we're obviously proud of, so we'll talk about it more in the future. But next episode should be something a little different, so it'll be exciting also to get into some different topics. So until next time, I guess that's it for episode 3.
All right.
Thanks,
Enjoy it.
Scott.
Thanks.